Let's take a look at some of the terms that make up JIRA. An issue is the essence of JIRA and basically represents a work item, any work item, or anything that requires an action from a person. So when you create a ticket in JIRA, you are essentially creating an issue. In other words, epics, stories, bugs, feature quests, tasks, all of these are issues of a different issue type. So when you create an issue, you can create an issue of an epic issue type, or a story issue type, or a task issue type, etc. You can create your own issue types in JIRA as well, but ultimately every ticket created in JIRA is referred to as an issue. It contains basic fields such as title, description, due dates, priorities, status, etc., and you can make your own custom fields as well. A project pretty much represents the normal term or meaning of a project and is basically a collection of issues. It can be a software dev project, a help desk system, general task manager, so on and so forth. Obviously, if you're looking at using JIRA Agile or JIRA Software, you're most likely engaging in software development projects. Pretty much everything can be customized within a project, including who gets access to it, the issue types available in a project, the workflows used, and many more. Which brings me to workflow. A workflow is a set of statuses that an issue in a project can have, along with the transitions between statuses that the issue can go through. This image is an example of a workflow and what it looks like in JIRA. So when you create a ticket or issue, it goes into the to-do status. From here, you can transition into two different statuses, either in progress or done. And the arrow basically represents what that transition is. So for example, if I have an issue sitting in the to-do state, I could either transition or initiate the transition of start progress, which would take the issue to the in progress status. Or I can initiate a transition called done, which would take the issue to the done state. And transitions in JIRA are basically represented by a button on the issue details page. So if I'm looking at an issue that is currently in the in progress state or with that status, then I would see two buttons. One would be stop progress, which when clicked would take the issue back to the to-do status, and the other button I would see would be done, which would take me to the done state. And similarly, if a issue is done, then I could transition through the reopen transition by clicking on the reopen button back to to-do, or I can click on reopen and start progress, which would take the issue back to in progress. So this is what a workflow is, and is fully customizable on JIRA to fit your needs. In fact, remember how I said that an issue can be of various issue types, such as epic, story, bug, etc., and a project can have different issue types associated with it? So for example, a software dev project would definitely want the issue types of story and epics, and maybe even tasks, but a general task manager project would only need the issue types of task and subtasks, and not really need stories or epics since it's just a general task manager and not a development project. So you can associate different issue types with a project, and in JIRA, you are able to actually configure a different workflow for each issue type within a project, to give you a high-level taste of how configurable workflows can be in JIRA. Now, versions basically help track releases of software. So remember when I mentioned that at the end of a sprint, you should have a shippable product or group of features. So for tracking purposes, JIRA allows you to create a version and add whatever issues that are going to be released into that version. You could either create a version at the end of every sprint, if you're releasing that often, or you could create a version over a set of sprints. Or if you've already identified the stages at which you want to release the software, you can create your different versions well in advance and assign the respective issues to each version. In Scrum, a version is usually pre-planned and is released when the planned work is complete, whereas in Kanban, A version can be released at any time and will contain all the issues that are complete or in the done state at that time. JIRA components are just a feature that JIRA offers to create subsections of a project. They are basically used to group issues within a project. So, for example, perhaps your project is broken into back-end development and front-end development. So you could create both of these as components and be able to group your issues accordingly. It's almost like a category of work. And an advantage of having components is that you can configure issues created under a component to have a default assignee, so that when created, it's automatically assigned to that person. So for example, you want all backend dev issues to be assigned to your lead backend developer, who can then delegate it out to other developers. You can do this through component configuration. And lastly, JIRA also uses the other common agile terms that we've already discussed, such as Scrum, Kanban, backlog, sprints, etc. Alright, now that we've identified the main JIRA terms, we are now ready to take our first dive into JIRA, starting off as a user working within an agile team.